Now that we're knee-deep in spooky season, it's time to broach a topic that may make you uncomfortable. Stop motion. Coraline, The Nightmare Before Christmas, Fantastic Mr. Fox. Were you to take a brief plongée into these films via the Google, you'd be forgiven for thinking that they're all universally well-loved. But if you've ever spent time actually talking about these films with people, you've probably heard something like this. I can't do stop-motion animation, it's too creepy. I hate Coraline, it's too creepy, it's the animation. The Nightmare Before Christmas is too scary, I don't like the animation. I've heard Fantastic Mr. Fox is funny, but I just hate stop-motion animation, so I won't watch it. Wah. Something like that.
Boo-hoo-hoo!
It's a prevailing enough sentiment, at least amongst the circles I move in, that I wanted to address this strangely common aversion. At least, I think it's strange, because unironically, all three of these films are great, and equally unironically, two of them probably make the shortlist for my top 25 movies ever. So what is it about stop motion that gives us the heebie-jeebies? Well, I plonged my own ass into the subject via the Google, attempting to find some scholarly sources that could supply us with a satisfactory answer to the question. Hoped, did I, for a research paper or two, or perhaps a case study, and while I did find a few, none of them offered the academic rigor or a big enough sample size of viewers interacting with a large enough variety of stop-motion films to satisfy me. That said, I gained a few insights from my plongée, and what follows will be an unholy mixture of what I learned from these articles, my own thoughts, and some inspiration from the good people of Reddit. I'll link everything I used in the description. Before we go any further, be sure to like and subscribe or the other mother will get you in your sleep. My best answer is reputation. Question: what are the most famous stop-motion films? The Nightmare Before Christmas is almost surely number one, and then it's a toss-up. You've got The Corpse Bride, Coraline, Fantastic Mr. Fox, Frankenweenie, Isle of Dogs maybe, Paranorman, James and the Giant Peach, Curse of the Were-Rabbit. These are the stock examples most people will have seen or at least heard of. And want to know something almost all of them have in common? Apart from two, they all dip into the uncanny valley at best and are horror adjacent at worst. Plus, think about this. Let's set the premise that The Nightmare Before Christmas is the most famous stop-motion film. Who directed it? If you said Tim Burton, you're actually wrong. He produced and conceptualized it, but it was actually directed by this guy, who went on to do Coraline. That fact surprises most people, but despite his role in Nightmare not including a sojourn in the director's chair, Tim Burton is inextricably linked with this film and all it represents. And what does it represent? Well, because it's easily the most ubiquitous stop-motion film, it represents the art form in general. And also, since Tim Burton makes creepy movies as a rule, the animation category brought to the fore by him must naturally be a creepy genre. If A equals B and B equals C, then stop motion is just not for me. I think it's also possible that the strange movements of the puppets may play a part for some people. We see humanoid figures moving in jittery, stuttering ways and we feel something is off. And we're right, I suppose, to think that way. Human bodies do not, in fact, move like this. But let us not live in hypocrisy. If strange movements of humanoid figures is really the answer, why doesn't anime freak more people out? Perhaps you feel it's the realism of the puppets combined with the odd motion that bothers you. If that's the case, may I ask, does Toy Story also make you cringe? Does Rango? If you answered yes, then fair enough. You can skip the rest of this video and lose no sleep. But as for the rest of you,
I'm calling you out!
No, I think the far more reasonable explanation is that stop motion is scary because stop motion is just scary. That's its reputation. That's its niche. And somewhere along the line, people decided that that's just how it is and they're sticking to it.
I won't change my mind because I don't have to. Because I'm an American. I won't change my mind on anything, regardless of the facts that are set out before me. I'm dug in. And I'll never change.
Even though there are plenty of stop-motion films that are absolutely and objectively no scarier than many of their computer or traditionally animated counterparts. But guess what? Stop-motion ain't gonna hurt you. It won't send you into shock, it's not epilepsy, and you won't need a shot of insulin or penicillin if it touches you. You, and I mean this in the kindest way possible, are just being a baby. You can get over this aversion through exposure therapy. It's just like acquiring a taste for olives, or building the habit of going to the gym, or developing a tolerance for cyanide to ensure your wife can never poison you. At least, not with cyanide. You can develop an appreciation for stop motion if you watch it and stop allowing yourself to be so sensitive about it. But why should you? Why should you learn to enjoy olives? Why should you start going to the gym? Why should you get used to stop motion? Well, Because one day you'll go to Italy, you'll never be yoked AF like Machamp otherwise, and if you don't, you'll skip over some of animation's best movies. I'd be willing to bet that 90+% of people that complain about how creepy stop motion is have seen actual horror movies that are way more disturbing than anything in Corpse Bride, Nightmare Before Christmas, or Fantastic Mr. Fox. Coraline is perhaps an exception, but we'll come around to that. I don't like the way that anime looks usually. I think it's over the top, it's too goofy, it's too exaggerated, but if I was so close-minded to the style as to never give it a chance, I would have missed out on some personal favorites like Castlevania or Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. I shouldn't let my general dislike of anime dissuade me from watching a Studio Ghibli movie or Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I try not to. I can now say that despite my biases, I'm a proud liker of some anime. I feel confident that many, if not most, stop motion haters can eventually join the joyous chorus of casual fans like me. Except with stop motion, obviously. We're not talking about anime in this video. So what are you missing out on precisely? Well, let me tell you.
Let me share with you some details.
Nightmare Before Christmas. The marriage between sound and world. I had a discussion a long time ago with a friend about the best Disney movie soundtrack. The two that we debated on being number one were Phil Collins' Tarzan soundtrack and Danny Elfman's from The Nightmare Before Christmas. Both all-time greats, I think, for inverse reasons. Phil Collins' soundtrack is full of pop rock songs that you could gleefully listen to outside of watching the movie without feeling like a weirdo. But apart from our own memories of the soundtrack being tied to the film, is there anything particularly Tarzan-y about the most famous songs? I don't think it adds all that much to the film's ambiance besides just being great music, which is a huge win, but the soundtrack in The Nightmare Before Christmas is absolutely married to the visual world in a way that Tarzan's soundtrack just isn't. Conversely, if I handed you the aux cord in the car and you started playing This Is Halloween out of season, I'd punch you in the mouth for being a goon. Danny Elfman's score just doesn't work quite as well in isolation as Phil Collins does. But when you're watching the movie, there is no doubt that the music is the perfect boon to the strange visual spectacle we see before us. It's such a unique cinematic experience when you put it all together that it really ought not be missed. Fantastic Mr. Fox. A genuine all-timer of an offbeat comedy. I've been quoting this film with my friends since middle school. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and just beautiful to look at once you can appreciate the craft. Stop motion is also the perfect medium through which Wes Anderson can express his Wes Andersonism, and the result is a unique and special animated comedy. Not much else to say besides you'll laugh at this. A lot. Coraline, the ultimate sleeper Halloween classic. It's not a slasher film you need to hide from your kids. It won't gross you out like so many other films in the horror genre, but it's genuinely creepy. There's a reason grown-ass adults are put off by the idea of an other mother who lives in a parallel world designed to suck Coraline in and keep her there. There's a reason we wince when the other mother suggests that Coraline sews buttons into her eyes. Those things are scary. Coraline is scary without being gory, without being demonic, and without indulging in some of the more grotesque excesses prevalent in the horror genre. Neil Gaiman and for the sake of the film, Henry Selick have crafted something that is spooky per se, and not just something only adults can or should watch. It takes special writing and equally special filmmaking to pull off a trick like that. Aside from its handcrafted, incredible looking world, Coraline is also allegorical in a way that's not just clever, but actually important. Coraline serves as an allegory for predators. I'll link a video in the description that you should check out after this. It's where I got this next point from. The other mother is a predator in the literal, natural sense, in that she eats the lives of the children who move into the Pink Palace.
And ate up our lives.
But she's also a predator in the sense that she operates in the same ways that child predators operate in the real world. She studies Coraline from afar to figure out how to lure her in. She sees that Coraline's parents are busy and stressed and sees in Coraline an easy and neglected target. She creates the doll to pique Coraline's initial interest. When Coraline eventually wanders into the new world, the other mother has designed it to be an exciting paradise. Then, once the hooks are in, she attempts to drive a wedge between Coraline and the real world to isolate her.
Gosh, I have no idea where your old parents are. Perhaps they've grown bored of you and run away to France.
See why I was saying that Coraline might be the one exception among these three movies for being maybe the most upsetting film you've seen? That's pretty f***ing scary. I didn't realize exactly what Coraline was until I'd watched the video I mentioned before, which again, I will link in the description. But this film is a scarily accurate allegory for what happens in the real world, and it can be used to help show children the dangers of trusting a stranger like the other mother. Aside from that, of course, as aforementioned, it's just an excellent spooky movie to watch during the spookiest of seasons. In conclusion, don't limit yourself. You can learn to appreciate this incredible, intricate, special art form that has a knack for telling stories like no other format can. And if you're unwilling to be open-minded in the end, at least don't ruin stop motion's potential for your children.